Hey, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today's show, we have to talk about the NFL quarterbacks. Where does this leave Kirk Cousins? You got Lamar Jackson. A lot of speculation about what's going on in the NFL, but teams are already saying we're out on the Lamar Jackson lottery. We don't even want to help negotiate his contract with the Baltimore Ravens, which could be a little bit of collusion, but we'll jump into that. And also, the Gophers men's basketball team tonight faces Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament. What does Ben Johnson need to do? What does this Gophers team needs to look like? And it looks like they're going to put a lot of younger players on the floor tonight versus Nebraska. How can this help or hurt Ben Johnson's future as the Gophers head coach? We'll talk about that next, coming up on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
This is the Ron Johnson Show, and I'm your host, Ron Johnson. We're going to have Sam Extra, my producer, join us in a short bit. But remember, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Just visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. And remember, March 12th, Selection Sunday. That's going to be the biggest week of the year. You got so much basketball, so many parlays, so many bets. We're going to come right alongside of you, and we're going to give away a little bit of our money as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. As I brought up today's show, we have to talk about the NFL quarterback. We have to talk about the Gophers basketball team. They're playing today in the Big Ten championship. And we have Joker Phillips, former Gophers wide receivers coach, now current college receivers coach, also coached in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. So he has a lot to say about the NFL draft, college football, NILs. And why is Justin Jefferson the best receiver, or what makes him one of the best receivers in the NFL? We'll go right to the horse's mouth, to a receivers coach who can give us a little insight on Justin Jefferson. And I want you guys to remember, you can download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Amazon Fire and Roku. Just whatever your device is, just go to your apps, search Locked On Sports Minnesota. You can download our app right to your TV. You can get all of our videos, all of our shows. Take it on your iPad. Take it wherever you go. And remember, you can find our podcast wherever you get your podcast. But as we jump in, Sam Ekstrom is going to join me on the show. Sam, the NFL quarterback, like I remember the days of Kirk Cousins showing up to Minneapolis, telling the New York Jets, no, thank you, going to the steakhouse, Rick Spielman taking them out, and all of a sudden fans are like, what? Kirk Cousins? 84 million? What? Kirk Cousins? 100 million? Now you're giving Daniel Mathiasen Jones. I don't even know what his middle name is. But Daniel Jones just earned himself $160 million in 4 years. That's $40 million per year. Lamar Jackson wants probably something close to that. And the Ravens decide to franchise him, which puts him in a $32.4 million contract for the year if he does go back to the Ravens. But there is the non-exclusive tag. So meaning any other team can offer Lamar Jackson a contract, and then the Ravens have the opportunity to match it if they let him go because it's a non-exclusive tag. They then get 2 first-round picks from that team. Seems extremely lopsided. And if you go back to free agency and the franchise tag of why it was created, the original reason was way back in the day with John Elway. And the owners were trying to find a way to keep John Elway. And that so he didn't just leave. And so they created this franchise tag. The franchise can tag you and you're going to get paid the average of the top 5 salaries. If you do it 2 years in a row, because it happened to Curtis Cousins when he was with the Washington football team, and you got to double it. So I think Kirk got 22 and then 44 million or something like that. It was something crazy. The percentage goes up and then there's all this math. Either way, The NFLPA had the chance to tear that down and say, you know what, you're no longer going to franchise our players. Either pay them or let them go. And the NFLPA did not fight it. They were like, look, there's so much other stuff we need to worry about in the CBA. If they're willing to do this, let's let them keep their franchise tag. Well, now you're seeing why it hurts. Because if Lamar and 5 teams right away, I find it really weird that 5 teams right away came out and said, we don't want Lamar Jackson. We don't want him. He doesn't have to be a part of our team. Seems a little bit like, I mean, not collusion. I think it's more of, I'm not going to negotiate your quarterback's contract for you so that you can turn around and then match that contract if you so choose, and he has to take it. The other option is sit out like he's been doing when he says he's injured and just, you know what, until you guys want to pay me, put me on the team I want to be on, I'm not coming back. But the fact that Daniel Jones got 40 and Lamar Jackson's getting 32, that's the problem with this whole thing. It does not add up. It doesn't make sense. Lamar Jackson is clearly a better quarterback, a better winner than Daniel Jones. Now, Daniel Jones did beat the Vikings in the playoffs, but that defense was absolutely horrible. 31st in the NFL. So you can't put Daniel Jones on that win versus the Vikings because he also lost to the Vikings. So when you think about that $40 million, then you have Curtis Cousins. You got Kirk Cousins. Where does that put Kirk Cousins? Does he now deserve $42 million? Does he deserve at least $40 million? There's so much to this that now has changed the scope of the quarterbacks. You look at Aaron Rodgers probably going to the Jets. You look at the Raiders saying they're not going to go after Lamar Jackson. You got the Packers, no idea what they want to do. You know, you see the Saints, they took Derek Carr. And so all this quarterback carousel, these dollars, Daniel Jones just kind of set the bar. If all these other quarterbacks looking around say, wait, Daniel Jones got 40, what about me? Like, why am I getting 30? And I think that's going to be the problem when you have a guy like Kirk Cousins, when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson, who it's coming. I mean, Justin Herbert and these younger guys, Joe Burrow, I'm scared to even think what Joe Burrow is going to ask for now. Like, it starts at 40 with him. You can't go less than 40 for Joe Burrow unless you do a longer, like $300 million type contract. Like, that's the only way. You lock him down for 7 years or something for $300 million. Like, it's going to get crazier and crazier. And Deshaun Watson's 230 guaranteed. I think that kind of put a precedent. And the rumor is the Browns owners did that on purpose to force these other owners to have to spend money on their quarterback. So it's happening. These teams are, and they're direct. The Browns and the Ravens are direct enemies. So that literally set their enemy into a tailspin. Wait, if Deshaun Watson got 230, Lamar Jackson, like, wait a minute, why am I not getting that? And here we are. They might not have Lamar Jackson next year, but there's teams every day. Teams are dropping like flies. We don't want them. But I don't know, Sam. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, it's a tough situation for teams pursuing Lamar, because if they do offer him a massive contract and try to outbid the competition, they might end up being stuck with a huge number, not knowing whether Baltimore is going to match that or not. So you have to still be sort of cautious in what your offer sheet looks like to him. But I'm looking at the top 4 average salaries right now at quarterback, Ron. Are any of these teams happy? The Packers and Rodgers, they want him gone. Russell Wilson and the Broncos, they're not happy. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, I don't think they're happy. Deshaun Watson and the Browns, those are the 4 biggest quarterback contracts on average. I don't think any of those franchises are pumped about it. So there is sort of a cautiousness about these big quarterback deals, Ron, because it's okay if your quarterback like plays well and leads your team to wins, like you can stomach paying a huge number. But if you pay a huge number and your quarterback is a liability in some way, then you're really messed up as a franchise.
Yeah, because when you look at Patrick Mahomes, that's the next one up there. The Chiefs, they're happy. The Bills with Josh Allen, they're next. They're happy. I think the Rams are happy with Stafford. They know what they
won
got.
A Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Dak Prescott in the Cowboys, that one is up for thought. Then you got Daniel Jones. Then you got Derek Carr, which are 2 new contracts. I think both of those teams right now are happy. This is early in the Giants-Daniel Jones marriage. So I'm guessing then you got Kirk Cousins, the Vikings. That's a question mark. Jared Goff and the Lions. That's another question mark. And then you got Lamar Jackson. And that's where you go. And then the coach are probably they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. It just depends on if they decide to jump and go get that first pick because they know which guy they want, or they're going to wait and go to 4 and just see who falls to them. That's going to be up to them. And then you look at the Titans. Who knows? You look at the Buccaneers, definitely in the quarterback market. You got Tom Brady maybe coming back to the Miami Dolphins. Who knows with them? Because if they know Tua needs maybe a year off with that concussion, Tom Brady to the Dolphins doesn't seem like a bad idea. But for the Vikings fans, you can't get mad anymore about Kirk Cousins getting $35 million because Daniel Jones got 40. So shut up. When you think about this game today, and you got the Gophers playing the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Really quick before we jump over, we got Joker Phillips about to join us, coach for the Browns, so he can tell us a little bit about NFL receivers, as we said, with Justin Jefferson and some of these new releases. As a coach, I talked to Reggie Wayne as well, and I got Reggie Wayne's take on receivers. I want to hear Joker Phillips's thoughts on that, and he's coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show on the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. But really quick, Sam, Gophers playing Nebraska. They are the worst team in the Big Ten. Lindsey Whalen already stepped down. If Ben Johnson puts up a fight like he did against the Badgers, he beat Rutgers, as we saw in the last shot by Dawson Garcia is over to what's his name? Jamison Battle. If he puts up a fight or even beats Nebraska, upsets Nebraska, I think he's fine. If he puts up a fight, I think he's fine. With these young players, if they get beat by 30, do you still feel like they're going to walk off the court and Mark Coyle is going to be okay with that situation?
Yeah, I actually do. I think that Coyle has to see the bigger picture here. If they win one game in the Big Ten tournament, 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, shy of winning the whole thing, is it really going to change what this season was? I mean, it was kind of a lost season. Whether your win total is 8, 9, or 10, I think that you look at it as a whole and say, all right, how did we do this season? Did we make progress? I don't know if the answer is yes to that, but you also have a freshman class that you're excited about, and you still have at least one exciting recruit, even though you lost Dennis Evans. I think that this is sort of just a chance to build chemistry experience for the young guys. I don't think it affects Ben Johnson's job security, in my opinion.
Well, we got Joker Phillips coming up next in the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. And remember, Locked On Sports Minnesota is a proud partner with Care 11, your local NBC in Minneapolis. Check out care11.com/locked on for links to every one of our Locked On shows. We have a word from our sponsors.
Let me tell you about FanDuel.com/locked on. That's where you go to get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. New customers can claim a no-sweat first bet. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked on, sign up, and you can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Use the super easy FanDuel app. Download it on your phone. You can get paid instantly after you win, and you can stack your bets in a same-game parlay for some big, massive payouts. FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Get that no-sweat first bet and get in the action today. As the NBA comes down the stretch, NHL, and March Madness is upon us. Make every moment more with FanDuel.
Well, coming up on the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, as promised, I got Joker Phillips. He was my coach at the University of Minnesota. He left me. We'll talk about that. He left me, went on to do bigger things, went to Notre Dame, went on to be the head coach at Kentucky. And then he ended up in the NFL with the Browns, and now he's the receivers coach for NC State, which is kind of weird too, because I remember we played NC State back with Phillip Rivers. But I want to thank Joker Phillips for joining me on the Hanging with Ron Johnson show. Josiah as Elvin Jones. So Joker, man, I appreciate you joining me. When you think about your coaching career, and let's just start back to coming to Minnesota, going on to Kentucky. You played football at Kentucky as well. What kind of told you early on that you wanted to be a coach?
Well, I was growing up. I was always the point guard. I was always the catcher. I was always the quarterback. I'm just kind of like the coach on the field, coach on the court, coach on the diamond. So I knew at an early age, and coaches had raised me. My dad passed away when I was 9 years old. So I'd been raised by coaches, and I just felt like, I'd been a coach in every sport that I played. So knew at an early age that I wanted to coach, and started trying to put together philosophy as I I was starting to end my career in college and I had a little cup of coffee in the NFL. I started trying to build the philosophy that I wanted to have as a receiver coach.
Yeah, man, you can't hoop, man. What are you talking about, point guard? Like,
hey, Kentucky got better known than Detroit as freaking as basketball.
man, Kentucky, the college, baby.
And I would tell Jalen Rose that too.
So you're telling me, so the Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, I mean, you got Javen Hunter, you got Shane Battier. Like, come on, man. Detroit is
Kentucky
definitely.
hey, you look through every roster now. What they came through Kentucky. You have to drink the Kentucky water to be able to put the ball in the basket. So,
man, that's because Kentucky be out there recruiting kids at birth, trying to get them to move to Kentucky.
Right. Rondo, hey, give us Rondo. All right. He's got a few championships.
I give you that. So, thinking about that, though, as a coach, like you've had some tough decisions to make as a coach, whether it's staying at a program, leaving to take another job, making a lateral move. What all goes into that mindset, when you're sitting down, with a coach, let's just say Notre Dame is calling you, you're already at Minnesota, and, what goes through your mind as you're kind of playing that out? And I will say to people, like the first, I remember, and I was a little drunk. I do remember that.
A little. I was
a little drunk, and all of a sudden I get a knock at my door. Joker Phillips is at the door, and I'm like, this can't be good. I'm like, why is he at my house this early in the morning? We was partying the night before. Myself, my roommate Jermaine Mays, who played receiver as well, Antoine Burns had walked over because he lived right down the hall. And Joker kind of gave us a heads up of what was going to happen. He didn't want us to hear it from Mason or from the news or, that he was moving on. And I'm not going to lie, it was tough. It like, I feel like I got the best I'd ever gotten from freshmen. Because, I had Vic Adamley as a freshman who was a running backs coach. He didn't know how to teach receivers. And then I get Joker Phillips for 2 years. I'm like, oh, man, I got this. And then Joker dips. But, yeah, man, like going through that, what was that like, that process of just when coaches have to move? Because a lot of people just assume, oh, you're going to get more money here, you're gonna be a millionaire head coach, it's easy to just move on. But what's that decision like?
Well, around 93, 94, I had a chance to with Coach Wacker to come to Minnesota, and flew up, interviewed, got offered a job, but it just wasn't the time for me. I was at Kentucky at the time, young coach. I felt like I put family first at that point, and I just felt like it was time for me to stay at Kentucky. And then, fast forward, I had been to Cincinnati, and Minnesota gives me a call, and I have a chance to come and interview with Coach Mason. I thought y'all was ready. I thought you guys were ready to win. Had beaten Michigan State, I think, in a big game that year. I thought you had some good young receivers. And I really like Coach Loney and some of the stuff that he was doing. And me and Tony Peterson came in together, he was a GA for us at Kentucky. So I just thought it was time for me to continue to build my resume, and go into the Big Ten. And then had you guys for 2 years, and we had won, I think, 8 and then 6 maybe. I think we might have been 6-6 and lost a tough game to NC State, who a bunch of guys walking around the building. A bunch of guys that Coach Dorn has hired that was on that team, and I think we was up 24-9 to a Phillip Rivers, a freshman Phillip Rivers team, and a suspended Corn Robertson.
Yep.
And at halftime they inserted Corn Robertson, and they come back and beat us. So I have to hear it when the lumps come back, and we talk about that. I said, you guys didn't beat us. Corn Robinson beat us. So
Corn Robinson beat us, and Glenn Mason beat us, because we were up like 24 to something. You're right. I had like 2 catches for 85 yards in the first half. Second half didn't touch the ball, and we ran. I think Tellus Redmond had like a record 46 carries or something. I'm like, why are we trying to slow this game down? Like, we could kill these guys, and we're playing right into their hand. And yeah, you're right. Corn Robinson. Punt return, deep ball on Andre Brown. Like this is before the Moss was created, so he mossed Andre Brown. Like Yeah, we got beat. Karan Riley's at halftime texting his agent, talking about where he about to get drafted. Like we were all and Miami was the last place you wanted to take half them guys to. Like it was
we had a bunch of Miami guys on our team, if you can remember. So, but yeah, so we lose that game, and and Notre Dame had just come off a 11-1 season, but I also got a chance the night before I accepted the job to watch them play against Oregon State, and it was ugly, and so there was some doubts, but again, continue to try to, to build a resume, and Notre Dame, had, a huge name, but in essence, I thought when I got there, we were deeper at receiver at Minnesota than we were at Notre Dame. I had Javen Hunter, I had David Givens.
Yep.
I had Arnez Battle.
Mm-hmm.
Had those three guys, but after that, the well was dry. So, and no offense to those guys, I just thought we were deeper at Minnesota, and I think you got struggled the year I left, but I think they got it back going the next year after that. But hey, enjoyed coaching you guys, but it was just again, when the kid's ready to go in his third year to the NFL and try to better himself, all power to him, and I just thought it was time for me to go at that time also. So
yeah, no, and I totally agree with that. I will say, yeah, it was your fault, because if you were still there, we'd have threw the ball a little bit more. I went from like 1,200 yards as a junior to 900 yards as a senior. Like, how does that happen? Well, because your receivers coach leave, the new receivers coach doesn't really fight for you, and so it is what it is. We Marion Barber was inserted, and that's when the Lawrence Maroney Marion Barber era started happening and started passing. I will say I just had Javen Hunter on the show because his son Jay Nivey is now in the NBA, and he did mention that all Notre Dame did was run the ball. So yeah, it was tough for them to recruit receivers. He like every year they had like one guy, and that was really it. Now it's kind of changed, but it's still been the same. Michael Floyd's been the one here and there. It's like it's been here and there. It's been one or two guys. Like Notre Dame, for some reason, it's always about the Jerome Bettises and the running backs. But when you became a head coach, you went to Kentucky, became a head coach. And that was your alma mater. Like what did that, like what sense of pride, or how did that feel getting called back by your alma mater to come be the head coach?
Well, I mean, it was warmed my heart, being the second black head coach in the SEC behind Sylvester Croom, and being able to do it in front of in my home state. But it warmed my heart. One of the things that I'd like to have done, I really never thought about being a coordinator. I never really did, because when I started off in the business, there was no coordinators that looked like me, and then as we went on, you start seeing a couple, and then I became a coordinator, and we did well. And so when I was young in the business, I really never thought about being a coordinator. So therefore, I never thought about being a head coach. Okay, but once you became a coordinator and we had success in the SEC, then you thought about being a head coach, but never thought about being at my alma mater as fast as it happened. The only regrets that I would have in it is I didn't really get to hire my staff. I inherited a staff, and I think that's tough on any coach. I saw Brett Blema take over the Wisconsin job, and he had a huge change in staff, and I really couldn't understand it at the time because they had built. They had built a really strong program, and he blows it up and starts over and continue to win. And I think that's the thing that I wish I would have had a chance to do. So, but enjoyed being a head coach. But one of the things about being a head coach, you don't have as hands-on with those receivers in the room with them day to day.
Right.
You're really not out there, you're not really not out, and you're not a foot soldier in recruiting also. So it's hard to go out there and evaluate receivers. You got to trust the other guys that they're on the staff. So,
yeah, looking at the NFL. So now, like I said, you were at Maryland, and then you went on to NC State. But looking at the NFL scouts, because when they come in now, receivers in the NFL are a high premium. A lot of teams are stacking 5-6 receivers. I mean, the Vikings 1 week, I think, went active with 6 or 7 receivers. So it's becoming more of a passing league. Running backs are becoming, far and few between, where they're getting paid tons of money. It's a handful of teams that keep that top running back. And now that receivers are a high premium, When you think about, your room and scouts coming in there, what are some of the things you try to impart on your athletes, knowing what the NFL is looking for?
First of all, it's character, how you handle yourself. I mean, one of the things you guys did in that room that I had is everybody carried themselves well. They understood how to talk football. And so many times when I heard a receiver room, they don't know how to talk football. They don't know. I always say, I want my kids to understand what's about to happen. So if they see coverages, they know what's about to happen before it happens. Therefore, you're able to play faster. When you go to the combine, forget what they call this, the train station. When they go to the train station at the combine, take over the conversations. Don't allow them to ask the questions. Hey, ask these scouts questions that might throw them off. Hey, are y'all a zone scheme or a gap scheme running game? Half of the scouts couldn't answer that. All right, so now they could not answer that. All right, are y'all a vertical passing team or are you guys more possession? They don't understand that,
Right.
So I think I want my kids to take over the conversations, especially when you're talking football. Okay, allow them to answer the personal questions, but stun them. Okay, stun them when you ask the football question. Because trust me, half of the NFL scouts they don't understand schemes and don't understand how to talk football. They just judging that talent.
Yeah, and looking at the question and answer part of it, and then you got, like you said, the talent part of it. And I've had this conversation with a few coaches now. Like, it's kind of, I've been intrigued by this because I get a chance to watch Justin Jefferson every week. And when you watch his releases, it's rare. It's not normal what he does. He sachets off the line, if you want to call it. He sidesteps, back steps, crossover, and somehow he's still getting down the field. Whether it's fear in the DBs, and so they're just scared to quick jam him. I don't know what it is. But when you have receivers, because now it's social media, it's Instagram, it's all this stuff of guys watching guys. How do you make sure you teach your receivers, like, hey, you can do this? The rest of y'all can't do this. Like, how is that battle when you talk about guys trying to dance? Because I remember with you, like, that was the one thing you taught us right away is, like, eat up that cushion, get into their body, create the contact if you're strong enough to do it. And that's how I played my game, physical, strong. I wanted to eat that cushion up. I wanted to get them into my body because I knew I could throw them out the way. But when you got guys that see Justin Jefferson and they try the Justin Jefferson stuff and it doesn't work, or it works one time, how do you coach through that?
Well, I mean, it's been a struggle, Ron. I'll say that. For me, I'm still an old school route runner that I really believe. But again, you talked about Moss. You was mossing people when they have to fight through a big body like yours and like some of these other receivers we see. Get into him. Guys don't want to touch because if I'm into him, I know where he's at.
Right.
Okay. If I'm not into him, I'm away from him. I don't have a clue where he's at. So we try to still get into people, eat up his cushion, like you said, and body him up. All right. And it's turned into what they call, we didn't call it contested catches when but you probably would led the nation in contested catches, in my opinion, just because you're so big and so physical, and I made your ass block. So they didn't know if they was getting ready to get the route ran on them or you was getting ready to burp them, because you would do that. You would do that. So, but I struggle with some of the crossover Allen Iverson moves at the bottom of the skin, at the bottom of their stem. Reason why, you got a quarterback back there just like go. So we wanted to eat up their cushion and get going, because you knew if you wasted time, Billy Cockerham was going to run the ball.
I will say the blocking. I met a guy from Illinois. I don't know if you remember this kid. I broke his leg. We were playing him, and I tried to cut block him because you used to make us like we made a DB touch the ground. We got extra grade. We got graded higher.
Right.
And the turf grabbed his foot as I'm trying to cut him. Broke his leg. I ended up running into him in a hotel because of his wife runs track, and of course my wife ran track.
Right.
And I felt so bad too, because he's like, yeah, man, like, because his wife knew my name, and so she's like, oh wait, my husband talks about you, like you broke his leg. And I was like, what?
It's either
I
you or him.
literally,
You or him. You or
no
him.
joke, no joke. I said, hey, you can blame Joker Phillips. I was like, if you ever see Joker Phillips, I was like, blame
Right.
Joker Phillips because he had us cut blocking on the backside of plays, get that DB down because, and so a lot of people don't understand this, because if that running back shoots out the back end, the only person that can make that play is the backside DB a lot of times. And so if you get him down, it's a touchdown. And that's why Tellis had so many long runs. That's why Marion Barber had like 800 yards as a freshman because he was untouched. He had one person to deal, which was a safety. And we did carry that on when you were gone. Me, Elvin, Mays, Twan, like that was our thing. We taught, Eric Decker, guys later, they had that same mentality of like, get the guy to the ground, because after you, honestly, there was no really receivers coach. It was Rich Wilson for a little bit, and then it was Luke Tressel. Rich Wilson was a receivers coach, but Luke Tressel was not. I think Mason just kind of put him in there because he's like, look, I can control this kid. I'm gonna make him the receivers coach. And so those guys actually, like Decker, Tyler Johnson was a different group, but Decker and some of those guys, they would still Logan Payne, they would reach out to me like, hey man, what was TP talking about with Joker Phillips, and what do you and so your teaching still lived on. And so that's why I bring that up with Reggie Wayne. I asked him about that because they were playing the Vikings. I'm like, how many guys try this Justin Jefferson crap? He's like, man, I tell those guys don't do that because it doesn't work. You got to be a special kid to have that body control and that ability. But when you look at,
he is elite. There's a couple of elite guys that can do that, and he's one of them.
I was gonna say, because I know when you coached us, you would show us NFL film, you would show us different route runners. When you show a guy like Justin Jefferson, what are you breaking down for your receivers to show them what he does well?
Well, I'll show him how he attacks the football when the ball's in the air. I mean, that guy believes every ball that goes in the air is his, and then his run after catch. And again, I'm not sure if I had it when you were there and when I coached you, but I came up with this acronym called CATCH. Okay, C meant confidence, self-confident. One of the things that you see in so many receivers, you better be confident and accountable, tough, be able to communicate, and then be healthy. That came up with that, and I want my guys to be confident first, and I think that's what you see in this Jefferson kid, man. When the ball's in the air, it's his. And I think his quarterback is now, again, with all those moves, your quarterback has to have trust in you. Mm-hmm. He has to, because if he gets stuck over there, that's the only place he can go. So he trusts that guy at the top of his stem. Okay, so because if he's playing around at the bottom of his stem, sometimes he has to cut routes off short, or the quarterback will be on his back. But and I'll say this in the blocking game, the reason why those guys run for all those long yards is like what you said. We tried to freaking maul down the backside, and I say we bowl. We want to bowl. Sometimes you can bowl a strike. We've seen some quarters coverage where we would go in and dig out safeties and all those things, and the corner would come with us. That's bowling a strike. But sometimes the running back had to pick up the spare. Yep, is what I call it. Well, we would block one. Now the safety's his. And our backs were good enough to make those guys miss and pick up the spare for us, and we rushed for a lot of yards. With all that rushing, gave us a chance to throw quick game to you. And every time we got in the red zone, we threw a fade to you because they thought the run game, and they had to pack the box because of the run game. And then for some reason, we decided to say, okay, let's give Ron the option to tell us what he wants. So I'm like, oh, why would we do this? And I thought you would run a fade every time, but you would sometimes run a slant, and you would just give us the signal, like, oh, here it goes. He's going to run a slant. And because you had ran so many fades and got your big-ass body on people, they ran to the fade, you ran to the slant. Touchdown.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's the one thing I tell kids now. I'm like, blocking is a way to set up routes, especially in the red zone, because you can mess around and like fade release, see how they do. And the minute you fake look up, they look up, you mash them, you hit them because they're not paying. They're thinking the ball's coming, and you play that game. But you also got to know you got to keep your head on the swivel because if you get him, he's gonna try to hit you. And so it's just a game. You play the entire game, and then you're right. When it's time to get down there, you look at his feet, you see what you get, you give him the signal. Hey, if he's shading, I can see he's gonna force me to the fade. And he wants to run me to the fade, so I'm gonna run a slant because I'm gonna make him think I got you where I'm going. Boom, I'm gonna smack the back of him, and come up under them. And I know some of the stuff now might get called because I used to grab the back of that jersey and pull a little bit. But, if you do it quick enough and you get that guy by, it's a touchdown. And so another quick one before we jump into the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Myself, Sam, and Joker are going to jump into that. But you said something that made me think when you were talking about the players in struggles. Another one I've heard is NIL. And we know in every school it's different. You talked about transfer portal. How does that conversation come into play now when you have recruits even asking you that about like what's the NIL look like around there, or when you have a guy on your team bringing it up? Like, do you guys tell the players like, hey, if you have it, keep it to yourself because we don't want other players to be bothered by it, or or do you just kind of say, hey, it's the Wild Wild West, they're gonna do what they're gonna do?
Yeah, from our neighborhoods, you never tell anybody about your money, So we try to tell them, keep it to yourself. It's not, but we know it's live here and live everywhere. We have a really good collective here that's taking care of our players. We try to do a good job of taking care of the players in-house first. I think that's where a lot of families, and this is a family, get divided when you're taking care of outsiders and not taking care of the guys that are already in house. So we take care of every one of our players that has a mouth, right? And then obviously the quarterbacks and the big name players, they are able to get more, just because of their name and likeness. But we do handle it, all right. And in recruiting, I don't even touch it. The conversation comes up. Hey, we do have a collective. We are taking care of everybody on our team. Okay, you play well, you get more.
Right.
And then the transfer portal. One of the things I have really gotten into, I want to develop my own. I want to grow my own.
Right.
And people say, okay, what happens? You grow this guy to be a second round draft pick, and he's got another year, and he doesn't want to go to the NFL, and he wants to transfer. So be it. I'll grow. I got the next guy in line.
Right.
Ready to grow him also. And it comes down to relationship. He feels like, hey, you are going to be the one to get him better. Okay. Then, hey, I'm going to stay with this guy because I've learned so much from him, learned so much ball. So it comes down to relationship. But I personally want to grow my own portal. I don't, you don't know what you get. It's like Christmas. I don't have a clue what you're getting unless I have put my hands on him at a camp, and work with him a little bit at a camp. I would know what I'm getting. All right. I can tell you this: if we had transfer portal or NIL when I left Minnesota to come to Notre Dame, I would have been calling your ass.
David would have been so pissed off about that. I'd have probably done it though. That'd have got me closer to Detroit. I probably would have done it.
Propping my ass. Your ass would have been there. I'd have freaking grabbed you up out of that bed that you was drunk and put because you was hungover. I would have put you in the car. Would have drove to freaking South Bend.
We got the Daily 3. We got the Daily 3 coming up next. That's myself, Joker, and Sam. Sam's going to throw some questions at us. We got 3 minutes to answer them. But I want you guys to remember, hey, check out the Minnesota Football Party 4 days a week from Monday to Thursday. Get your Vikings fix with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Braun, and Sam Ekstrom on Locked On Sports Minnesota. We have a word from our sponsors.
Before we get to the Daily 3 with Joker Phillips, let me tell you about Built Bar. We love Built Bars around here because they are a delicious treat without the fat and calories, and they are so easy to attain now because you can get them in store at Walmart or at Sam's Club. Go to the pharmacy section and get these protein bars that are covered in 100% real chocolate. The flavors are delectable: peanut butter brownie, coconut almond brownie batter, churro. And they've got 17 grams of protein that they somehow miraculously pack in there. Get the 4-bar box, get the 13-bar box, get them at Walmart, Sam's Club, or if you want to order, go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15. Built Bars, they get it right every time. We love them. Load up on some Built Bars today.
Well, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. Take it away, Sam.
All right, Joker, you're an experienced wide receivers coach. I'm curious, what is the main technique when you're getting these young guys into your program? What's the thing that is the most challenging to coach young receivers to pick up?
Well, probably big press coverage, releases. There's so much press coverage nowadays in college football and pro football that and DBs are able to hold. They hold. That's the first thing they taught. I think when they come out, when they are first born, that's the first thing they teach is how to hold the bottle. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to hold the receivers also. So just getting off press coverage is probably the toughest.
Yeah, and I'd say I agree with that. And I'd say NFL to college is so different too, because if correct me if I'm wrong, Joker, they get to hold within that 5 yards pretty much. Like if they engage them within 5, they can hold on to them. Where in the NFL, it's quick jam and then you got to let them go. So even that, like, how do you teach your guys to just keep fighting through? Because once you got to get to that 5 yard mark before you can, kind of get to your full sprint.
Yeah, well, again, you got to be physical. I mean, you got to be physical, and you got to set up routes also. Like we just said, you would set up the fade, run the slant. Okay, if you would set up the slant, and then you would run the fade. So you got to move guys' feet. If you don't move their feet, okay, they're able to grab you. If I move his feet a certain length, then I got a chance to get a free release. Okay, so that's a good thing that you did. That you wasn't real fast. We'll say that you were physical. You were physical, and you had really good feet. You did a good job of activating your feet at the snap, and not doing the Allen Iverson crossover or Kobe Bryant crossover. You would have short strides, and you would stick guys, and you would do a good job of selling slant or selling fade. So that's what I got to get young receivers to do. To move.
I will say chest over knees, knees over toes. Even when I got to the coach and I was coaching, because Reggie Wayne brought that up. That's the first thing I started telling guys. I'm like, there's an easy way to remember: chest over knees, knees over toes. You'll never slip. And Reggie says to this day he still teaches that way because every coach has a different term. And when I said it that way, like Pierre Garçon said, he's like, "Oh man, that made total sense. Like I got it." And Pierre Garçon became one of the a good receiver in the NFL. But also my short shuttle. I ran like a 4.59 in the 4.55, but my short shuttle was a 4.02. Somebody posted that on Twitter that I had the fastest short shuttle that year for receivers in the 2002 draft class, 4.02. So
shouts out to your the guy, your trainer for the combine. Here's the reason why, because he did a great job of manufacturing a 4.9 for you, a 4.59. He did a great job.
4.59, 4.55. That was my 2 times. That's all I had. Yeah. The scouts told me, like, look, if you could just run under 4.6, you're good. I was like, all right, let's do that. And I got under 4.6. So that's all that mattered. What you got next?
Hey, that knees over your toes, that gets even harder for a big guy. The bigger you are, the harder it is, and you did a good job of working that. I can't remember you ever slipping in the game. I can't.
Yeah, no, Clyde Christensen, one of the drills he had the guys start off with the coach when I got there was they had to put their hand on the little cone, like the littlest cones. He put them down, they put their hand on it, so they're acting like they're at the top of the route. So whatever you got to do to get comfortable to be able to touch that cone, line up like that, and then he clap his hand, they got to come back out and run a comeback. And so that was teaching the guys, that's how low I want you to feel like you're getting in your comebacks to come back. Because if you're up high, you're going to slip. If you're up high, that DB is going to pull you. So you got to get that chest down. You got to get those, sink at the hips. And and Reggie said he's still, like his practices, he still starts practice with that same drill. So yeah, it's there's still some old school out there. Like I said, there's only so many Justin Jeffersons in this world. So what you got next?
So many route doctors.
Exactly.
I could listen to you guys go back and forth on this all day, but question number 2, Joker, you've coached at the college level, coached at the NFL level. Which of those 2 roles is the more demanding position for the coach?
There's no question the college levels. You got recruiting, you got academics, which one of the things I didn't have to deal with this guy was he did go to class and did take care of business, but most of the time you inherit a receiver room. It's a struggle, but Ron had been raised the right way and did a good job, and was into his academics also, so it had no problem. But you got recruiting, you got academics, you got football, now you got social media for those guys. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of demands that comes with it, and then now you add in the portal, you add in the NIL stuff. It becomes a really challenging job at this level.
I definitely say college as well. I've heard some stories. I talked to Matt Simon with the Gophers. Again, I talked to Reggie recently. I talked to Chris. He was on our show, Sam. Forgot his name for the Redskins. Commanders. He's
Chris
now with
Harris?
the Titans. Chris Harris, the DB coach. And so just talking to those guys about the NFL version, versus the college, it's lights out. College is harder. I mean, you got not only that, you got I remember Reggie Wayne told me one day, like, hey, this week in practice, just tell me when I look tired. That was it. Like, I just had to tell him when he looked tired, because he knew when he's tired, his routes suck. So he's like, dude, just let me know when I look tired. I'll tap out, get somebody in for me in practice, because clearly, like, either one, I don't know if he was partying that week or what he had going on, but that was what he told me. Hey, keep an eye. When I look tired, get me out of there. But college, I mean, you got parties, you got dudes drinking, it's way too much stuff to worry about. And then you're right, class schedules. It's tough. I was going to say, Joker, do you guys do the morning practice now to make sure the players are up for class, or do you still do the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock practices?
No, we're a morning practice team,
Okay.
Not, they're up for class, but now you got to make sure they're up for practice.
Right.
Because our practices are earlier than the class schedules are.
Right.
So, they got to be in the building at 6:45 some days. So, and then days have become longer, because with morning practices, your classes, sometimes you have night classes.
Yeah.
But Ron, they now have online classes also. It's a bunch of those online classes, bunch of 8-week classes where you take a class for 8 weeks, and then after 8 weeks you don't have a class. You down to 2 or 3 classes. So a lot has changed, man.
Clearly. What's the last one, Sam?
Last one. I noticed, Joker, on your Wikipedia, you did a stretch in the CFL. I'd like to know what was the biggest adjustment going from American football to the CFL.
Probably for a receiver would be conditioning. I mean, you throw it's only 3 downs, so you're gonna throw the ball first and second down, and then if you complete that, you got to throw the ball. You have very few runs, and then you would have motions that start 20 yards deep, and then by the time you get to your route at 10 yards, you done ran 30 yards. Then you got to get back in the huddle. Then just running off the field. The field's wider. The field's longer. So I think conditioning. I was probably the biggest adjustment that a NFL receiver would have to a CFL receiver.
Yeah, I'd say the same. That's that movement. I did it for a year, and and my size, like motioning in just to run a shallow, and it's crazy. And then you shift backward, like you start at the line, then all of a sudden a guy comes up, so you're the motion guy. They want you to motion back and then back forward. It's like, come on, man, like this is. We're doing too much out here.
But with that, you don't have to teach press coverage either, because that's what
guys aren't pressing.
Guys aren't pressing you because you getting a running start at them, And then, but you did have a teammate that played for a long time up there, in Arlen Bruce, and I think Jermaine Mays played up there a long time too. So so we had some guys on our roster that played up there also.
Oh, yeah, and then I played with Kenyon Rambo. I played with Reggie Germain, so they were on the Calgary team when I played. Nick Lewis, who played for a long time up there. Henry Burris, the quarterback. But yeah, Arlen, that was his. I mean, I probably should have known that after that bubble screen against Iowa. Like that was one of the craziest ones ever to beat Iowa on like an 89-yard touchdown on a bubble screen. So yeah, Arlen was built for that league. Like he owned it. He loved it. He loved that motion running, and that was his deal, because when he was with the 49ers, I remember playing against him, and he was a true slot, but they didn't treat slots back then like they do now. Yeah. Now
when he went to Canada, they used slots, and that's what helped him. Yes.
Yeah, the NFL was, they were looking for 6'3", 6'4" back then with Terrell Owens and J.J. Stokes and, guys like Arlen Bruce. It's like, he's just a slot. And now it's like, man, we need a Tyreek Hill. We need a slot. And so, the game's evolved. It's changed. And before we get out of here, Joker, man, I want to give you a chance to give your younger self a message, because I always do this with the guests. If you can go back in time, it could be 10-year-old Joker. It could be Joker at Kentucky with those terrible hip pads. I don't know what you thought you were doing. Hip pads was terrible. He tried to show us a highlight tape, and Elvin Jones could not watch the highlight because he's like, man, what are you doing with your hip pads? Like,
I had a hip pointer, man. I had a hip pointer. See, anybody else had a hip pointer like that, they would have missed every game. I had to wear them the whole season.
Oh man, but yeah. So when you think about your younger self, if you go back in time, could be coaching Joker, could be playing Joker, like 10-year-old Joker. What's some advice you would give yourself for the future?
Just relax, man. I mean, I don't know if I ever relaxed. I was always, trying to, I think the game has changed now that, we make it really tough,
Mhm.
as coaches, back then. And I think we made it way too tough, and we didn't simplify things, didn't relax, and just coach ball. We tried to figure out all these ways of defeating, different coverages and all that. Hey, they can only play a couple coverages. They're either gonna play man or they're gonna play zone. And I don't think we did enough of that. And I don't think I just relax and just let the game come to me, So I would tell me just relax and have fun with the shit sometimes. So and I'll tell every coach that now. And sometimes after wins, you didn't feel like you won,
Right.
and you know how hard it is to win games.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about NC State is Dave Dorn's come here and we celebrate 3-0 wins, just like we would a 45-0 win,
Right.
And sometimes in our careers we didn't celebrate every win. Sometimes wins felt like they were losses.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I even think that goes in life. Sometimes people get promotions or they do something well at work and they just don't feel like it was enough. And so, yeah, they don't take the time to celebrate. So I think that's huge. That's great advice. But I want to thank you for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show, man. I got to definitely get you back a couple more times throughout this, especially once the season starts for sure. Just check in on you, make sure everything's good. Hopefully the Gophers play NC State in the bowl game like that.
Yeah,
that would
we
be.
thought that. We thought that this year. You
I
guys
know.
drew Syracuse and we
I
drew
know.
Maryland.
I was hoping. So, yeah, no, it's coming. Hopefully, or maybe they need to get a SEC, ACC, or Big Ten challenge or something at some point. Like I'm hoping with this new UCLA, USC. I hope that happens. And I got to get you back on because, yeah, we got to talk about UCLA and USC. I've asked everybody that, but I don't, we've gone long enough. But again, I want to appreciate you I want to thank you, for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show. And I want everybody to remember, if you want endless Vikings talk with local experts, make sure you subscribe to the free Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Also, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can find all of our videos, of course, all of our shows on YouTube. You get instant podcasts after every game and the Vikings press conference delivering all the biggest news. Thank you and have a great day.